This is great. It's Friday afternoon in Montreal, and people are still around. So surprising. So this is a great event. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you also enjoyed. Very quick intro. My background is machine learning and NLP. I'm now part of the Georgian Impact team. And our mission is to eliminate barriers to technological and scientific innovation in our startup. In simpler words, we are trying to de-risk innovation and research for our portfolios. Big corporations, Google, Microsoft, Apple, they all have access to the right talent, and innovation and research, especially in the area of machine learning and AI, is not risky for them. But our startups, and most of the startups, they don't have access to such talent. We try to help them to accelerate, to grow faster by adopting machine learning and AI. You can see a couple of Legos here. These are the companies that I have worked with, and I would like to share my insight based off working with these awesome companies. So I know you are here to listen about the future of AI. But first of all, I'd like to know how many founders, startup founders, do we have in this tent? OK, perfect. So I guess we have to talk about future of AI for startups and for data-driven products. We don't care what's going to happen, if robots going to take over our lives or not, that I don't believe they're going to. But anyhow, I believe we all like to know what's going to happen for startups in terms of AI. And of course, artificial intelligence will continue to transform industries. Most narrow tasks will become automated, given we have enough data for them, with a couple of key trends taking off. One of them, you might already know about, is that we're going to shift from data science and analytics to more advanced deep learning techniques, and who knows what's going to be the next technology. Research on profile modeling and representation learning continues to be a major focus, driving personalization of products and services for your users. But we are investors and you are startups. What's really important for us is that how AI can help startups to differentiate themselves, put distance between themselves and their competitors to protect their market share. That's why I like to talk about moats. Warren Buffett described the importance of moats in his investment thesis by saying, in business, I look for economic castles protected by unbreachable moats. Moats that prevent their competitors from stealing their market share. Sustainable competitive advantage that puts distance between the startups, the businesses, and their competitors. As a startup leader, founder, you should have already thought about what are my startup moats. What prevents my competitors to take my market share? And let me guess what you have thought as your current moats. Switching cost? Anyone? Economies of scale and cost advantage. Network effect. Network effect is a very important one. In fact, network effect was the main factor for success of companies, startup companies like Slack, Spotify, and Waze. Deep technology and IP. It can be another moat. And brand and your customer relationship. These are the traditional or current moats. But moats are not static. They are changing. Why? Because they are tied to technologies that are evolving. And machine learning is one of those key disruptive technologies. Why? What is special about machine learning? Machine learning gives scale, velocity, momentum to companies, and this can erode traditional moats. That's the main reason. Jeff Bezos said in letter to shareholders in 2017 that over the past decades, computers have broadly automated tasks that programmers could describe with clear rules and algorithms. So basically, we could have automation for those tasks that were easily translated into rules. But modern machine learning now allows us and let us to do the same for more complex, much more complicated tasks that weren't possible to be described by simple rules. That's special about machine learning. So one of the most exciting things about AI and machine learning is that it can help companies to build such competitive advantage in ways that maybe weren't possible before. We talk about traditional moats, but maybe AI can enable you to build new moats. That's great. In fact, what I really like to talk about is your data asset. Data has become a business-critical asset. I guess we are all on the same page. We all agree that a data asset can be a big competitive advantage. But now there is a huge opportunity now for you guys to effectively use this data and leverage this data and unlock the value in your data to derive meaningful insights and automate the most complex processes in your business. This is important. So again, it's so obvious. You have a data asset, you have a great competitive advantage. But our world is changing. So no data asset will remain valuable forever. You need to have mechanisms, systems, algorithms, and interactions to update and replenish your data. You need to have intelligent interfaces. You need to have intelligent integrations to increase the value of your data, enrich it by aggregation, extraction, and integration. I really like AI flywheel. OK, I have some data I collected historically from my user. Let's figure out how can I use it and build my first machine learning model or AI system. Done. I can use, maybe even I don't need to hire a machine learning scientist or data scientist. I can ask one of my engineers to just use off-the-shelf algorithms and train the first machine learning model. OK? The model is going to be shipped in production. What is really important then is to capture the feedbacks. What we mean by feedbacks, or close your feedback loops. Basically, it means that you have to capture the context, the expected output or outcome, or what your machine learning predicted, as well as the actual outcome. And you're going to feed it back to your machine learning model. You're going to enrich your data. You're going to make your data up. You're going to update your data by these new feedbacks data. You're going to cover more edge cases. So you're going to have a broad, deeper data set over time. And you're going to improve your machine learning model and user experience. That's why it's really important to think about system of data rather than your only data asset. So what are the main characteristics of data moats? Of course, not every data access or data asset is a strong moat. It should be unique, broad, and deep. And it should be difficult to acquire because of certain access barriers. Imagine if you have an exclusive access to patient data, this is huge. This is such a strong moat because there are lots of barriers to have access to patients' information or patient data. But if, for example, you are collecting images, like general images, and you know that currently with advancement in machine learning and cutting-edge machine learning models, we can simply generate high-resolution images, so it might not be strong moat anymore, at least now. It's also important to, again, to think about, do I have access to outcome or not? Imagine, again, you are providing some predictions for your patients, for your users, and then you have to be able to capture if your predictions was correct or not. So you should have long-term access to your patient data rather than a single shot of your patient's information. So outcome is going to be the most valuable data asset you're going to have, especially in the future. And if you have data that's, if you are using two other parties, or like you are using third parties data set to build your machine learning model and you can only rely on your data, doesn't mean you have a strong moat around your business. So that's another kind of consideration. So let's talk about system of data. As we said, data must be refreshed frequently. You should have mechanisms to collect, normalize, analyze, and enrich or even aggregate. And even if you need to generate certain edge cases, to be able to also generate data. Flywheels to collect the outcome and the input to improve the quality and coverage of your data set over time. Aggregation is, again, very important. We are investors, and we only invest in business-to-business companies. So you can think of each of our companies, our portfolio companies, customers are big businesses. If they don't have data rights to aggregate this data, if they have only silhouette databases, they really can't take the advantage of such big assets. But if they have data rights, and if they can provide certain privacy guarantees to their customers and convince them to share their data with the other possible partners or customers, that's a big advantage for them. That's a huge competitive advantage for them. Examples of companies with data moats. The most obvious one is Google. Google has collected lots of data from us, our search logs, also our clicks. So again, it's an example of, it's not only collecting our inputs, it's also collecting our outcomes. Out of all those recommendations it provided, which one we clicked on. Also, a system of data. Over time, it has hired best talent and also built system of data-based machine learning models. The other example I really like is Blue River Technology. They are collecting lots of plant images. They take images of plants using drones, and they have collected such huge data set of high-resolution plant images, captured in real time via cameras or drones. And they also build a system of data to actually use this data and provide recommendations and suggest actions to the farmers, or even provide full automations for the farmers. This is huge. Another example is one of our startups, TrueFit, that they had a huge partnership and collaboration with thousands of retailers and brands, and built such huge data set of fit and style that nobody else has access to. That's, again, huge data asset for TrueFit. And now we started working with them to build the system of data and machine learning models to leverage such huge assets. Facebook is also a good example of a company that has built an empire using its data modes. It has collected our likes, images, texts, clicks, network, everything. And of course, they have built a system of data by analyzing our data, extract insights, building profiles, classification, ad targeting, everything. Basically, they took advantage of our lack of awareness and preconscious. And this worked great for them, no doubt. And maybe you can say even it worked for lots of other companies over the past decade. But we believe if you're a startup and you want to build a moat now, this model might not work for you anymore. Why? The world has changed. Now users are more sensitive. They are more aware about their privacy. They really like to know how their data is used and will be used, and what kind of value they get in return, they receive in return. So it's harder to convince users or your customers to provide you such huge amount of data unless you build trust with them. So before it was easy, you could just harvest data reactively. OK, first let's harvest data, and then I'm going to think about privacy and security. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. And even you didn't need to even really think about the third-party access to your user data. But now it's different. Trust must be earned, and you have to work proactively to gain access to your user data. And you have to be so careful about managing your third-party usage of your users' data. And of course, we believe the leading companies that take strong stance about trust will be the winners of the tomorrow's market, because they can build stronger moats. Remember, we discussed about moats and data moats and system of data, and you need to have access to your customers, users' data. It's not only our belief. Tim Cook also had the same belief. I'm going to let you read it. Trust and moats are inseparable. Yeah, Apple doesn't want to be. Maybe Apple is going to be that trusted entity for our future. Who knows? So, trust and AI modes are inseparable. Let's talk about building blocks of AI trust for a moment. Communication is a big piece and is a big pillar. Explainability, fairness, privacy, and security. And of course, you don't have any choice anymore. You have to be compliant. Regulation is a big discussion in every company these days. So let's talk about if you, for example, want to build a data modes, how can you use trust? In terms of communication, you need to communicate the security and privacy policies in simple language. We all have signed 20,000 pages of consent every time we want to use an app. It's stupid. It shouldn't be like this anymore. There should be smarter interfaces. And you should provide data owner control over how their data will be used. If they agreed to give you their data, then you need to think of how can I make it safe? How can I mitigate the risk of data breach by designing a security architecture? For example, by protecting their data by encryption at rest and transit. or limiting access to data based on some risk level. The other important factor is compliance and regulation. For example, GDPR. You need to enable your users with individual rights. Rights to access, rectification, and deletion. It is already part of GDPR, European data regulation. And at the end, privacy. Privacy is also a very important topic. In fact, you have to identify the best practices for privacy-preserving techniques. And it's not easy. It's a complex area. It's a complex topic. And you have to define requirements based on your data type and user sentiment. Simple anonymization by just removing any personally identifiable information is not sufficient. Believe me. We already see lots of examples. Netflix published their data, their user kind of interactions with their system by removing only personally identifiable information, and it turned out people can simply map those records in their data set to individuals. So you need to use technology. You need to use these cutting-edge techniques such as homomorphic encryption or differential privacy to provide more formal guarantees to your users. These techniques can give you they have mathematical foundation, and they can give you mathematical guarantees. That's the main difference between differential privacy and homomorphic encryption compared to simple anonymization. And you can imagine, that's also one of the areas that our team worked a lot over the past years, and we help our companies to garner the trust. And of course, they are B2B, so it might be different from B2C, but still it's a very important topic. We help our companies to garner the trust and convince their customers to share their data with them. And then it could also solve not only privacy concerns, also it could help them solve other business problems, like cold start problems as well. And of course, you have to increase the value of your model and products over time by providing better personalization and intelligence. Let's talk about system of data. How to use trust to build a system of data modes. System of data should be built on foundation of privacy, explainability, and the ability to show fairness. I'm so happy that John also brought up this topic, fairness. Machine learning models can be reverse engineered or attacked to access to their data that has been trained on. Again, back to our example, if you are using patient information to build your machine learning models, and then you give access to these models to so many users, so if you have only a single malicious user, that user can attack your machine learning model and get access to your individual patients. So again, it's important. It's again a topic that most of us, especially for startups, they are really struggling with day-to-day business. Say, OK, privacy, that's fine. We can get back to it later, who knows when. But it's an important topic. It's an important topic to build private machine learning models. Explainability is, again, one of my favorites, because you have to make your user happy. If your user likes to know what's going on inside these models, or what are the rationalities behind your models, you have to provide the user the kind of interface, a simple interface that is understandable, and communicate elements of your solution. And again, don't be discouraged, oh, I'm using deep learning, these are like black box. No, there is active research in machine learning community, and we already have found several solutions that even works for deep neural networks. And at at the end, fairness and performance, that's the last topic I will cover. And I really like to cover it at last because I want you to walk out of this tent by remembering this topic. In fact, machine learning models has been built based on the assumption that the future will look like the past. If the past, for any reason, various reason, was or is or was, in fact, biased or unfair, then it's a question for you and your users or customers. Do you want the future to look like past or not? If the question is no, then you can't rely on data anymore. Because data can capture all the biases, propagate it back to the machine learning models, and even reinforce these biases over time. Imagine if you have a loan officer in your branch that it is biased, that it is racist, that it is sexist. He can affect maybe 3-5 people a day. But if you have a biased machine learning model, it can affect thousands of people per day. This is huge. That's why we need to talk about these problems. So it's important to test your models against potential biases and use several possibilities. Like you can cast fairness as an optimization model and use the same machine learning techniques to also achieve fairness as well as the performance. There are lots of, again, don't be discouraged. It's an active research in ML community, and every day I'm so encouraged to see new researches, new technologies, new algorithms that enables us to build fair models. But you have to remember that bias may come from the existing business processes and their data. And you have to monitor your system performance as well as trust. OK. Future of AI. That's what we were talking about. It will increase scalability, velocity, and momentum for your businesses. For sure. No doubt. Most likely, it will erode existing moats and create new ones. So be opportunistic. Take the advantage of machine learning and data, and build your moats now. But remember that trust should be a fundamental and foundational element of these moats. And companies that make trust part of their DNA will have a unique advantage to develop the strongest relationship and moats around their business. So use AI, use trust, and differentiate yourself, and put distance between yourself and your competitors today. I hope it was useful. Feel free to follow me or reach out. I'm so passionate about the topic of machine learning and trust and its application in startups, businesses. I'm not a big fan of big corporations, and I'm so happy to be here.